Hello GameMakers, this is GameMaker Rob, and in today's episode we will be covering a testing object which is going to display a conversation. It's going to load a map, load the units, and we're going to have a conversation at the start of the battle. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to add 2 new rooms. The easiest way to do this is just to right click on the room we have, duplicate it twice, and we want one of them to be above. There we go. And it's going to be called room first, and the one below is going to be room testing. We're going to delete the objects in room testing. We're going to delete obj main from the editing room, and we're going to delete the editing object from RM first. The way it's going to work is we're going to have a state inside obj main. We're going to have either testing or editing. If we are editing, we're going to go to room editor and we're going to load the editing object as we have been before. If we're going to RM testing, we're going to have a testing object so we can test our missions to make sure the conversations work properly, that kind of thing. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into obj editor, the create event, and we want to find a region called setup sprite array. We need this to be in obj main so that it can be read from anywhere. So we're just going to delete it, copy, delete it, and then we're going to go into the create event of obj main and just going to paste it here. And let's also wrap this other stuff inside a region 2. Let's call it character enums and grid. We also want to make obj main persistent, so that when we change rooms, it doesn't get destroyed. Okay, so now we are going to have 2 new regions inside the create event of obj main. We have setup missions and states. So inside this one here, we're going to have some mission parameters. Basically, every battle scene we have is going to be a mission. We want each mission to know the map that it's going to be on. We can use the same map several times and have different conversations, that kind of thing. We also need to know the file name for the CSV file we want to use for the conversation. One thing we will add in the future is a rewards list as well, to say how much gold and what items, if any, the player will get as a reward at the end of the mission. But for now, these 2 entries will be enough. We're going to need to have a grid created at the start of when the game first loads. This grid basically is just going to store the stats, the entries for the missions. I've only created 1 mission for now, so the mission entry is going to be here. So the very first mission is mission 0, and the map for mission 0 is 0, as in the first map that I've created. And the conversation for mission 0 is this one here, which we're going to add very soon. So don't worry if it gives you a red mark to say it doesn't exist. We're going to add it in a minute. And then states, we're going to add more game states, but for now we just need editing and testing. And we're going to set the game state to testing so we can ignore the editing bit for now. And so if the game state equals editing, then go to room editor and that'll load the editing object so we can edit our maps and missions, that kind of thing. Or if the state is testing, which is what we're going to do today, then we want to go to the testing room and we're going to have a brand new object to test our missions. So make sure you've got this and we can move on. Okay, so we're going to add that conversation CSV file now. So I'm going to right click on included files, insert, and then I want to go to, for me it's desktop, tutorial, tactics, CSVs, conversation 1, open, and there we go. If we open it, right click, open externally. Okay, so each entry here is a person speaking, and the numbers at the start is the unique conversation index of the person that's speaking. You can see here both these two lines start with a number 2. That's because Sarah is speaking twice. So she says this and then she says that. This is why we wanted to make sure the unique conversation index stays the same, whether we add or delete characters in the mission map or not. Because if we've already added text for characters and the unique conversation index for that character changes, we'd have to change this as well. I've been trying to keep things as simple as possible, but also with functionality. Sometimes that means that there are negative sides to it as well, because we're not covering all bases. What I'm talking about right now is the way we know which person is speaking is we're going to be using a function called string digits. The way that works is it just checks a whole string and it just returns whatever digits are in the string. So for example, in this string here, it would return 8. This one would return a 1. If this said 83, then this whole string will just return 83. What it also means as well though, is if we had a number 1 here, then this string would equal 81, and that's going to give us some problems because we probably don't have a unit with a unique index of 81. So that is the negative of just using string digits. But I decided that as long as I let you guys know about that, it shouldn't cause too many problems, because you can always replace a number with a word. Is there a way to have numbers in the string as well? Yes, there is a way to have numbers in the string and be able to have them. It requires some more code. I didn't think it was worthwhile because I'm trying to make it, like I said, as simple but as useful as possible. So anyway, that's the explanation for this CSV file. So all you have to do is, whoever you want to speak first, you type their unique conversation index number, and then you put their text. Whoever you want to speak second, you put their number and their text, and so on until you've got to the end of the conversation. And we can have this at the start of every battle. You're going to want to have conversations at the end as well. That wouldn't be too hard to add. We can have like an entry for this is the conversation for the start of the battle and this is the conversation for the end of the battle. That's easy to do. We also want to have areas like a shop where there's no battle at all. It's just, displaying a map, and we want to be able to buy and sell things. That will probably be something we do later on. I'm pretty sure it'll be in the tutorial, but if not, it'll definitely be in the itch version of it for the asset store. So hopefully I've explained that, and make sure you've got it in the included files. Make sure that if you've named it differently, then this name here has to match this. In fact, you can just click twice, copy it, and paste it to be sure. job's a good one. Okay, so now we are going to add the test object. So we call it obj test. And we want to put it in the testing room. Funnily enough, this is where it goes. Again, before we get into the code, we're going to be reusing a lot of the same code we had inside obj editor. It would be better to just have one object that draws the map, and everything like the editor, the testing, the actual game would use that same code. I just decided that it would be a lot more efficient use of time to have a separate object just for testing, as well as one for the battles. Just hopefully that'll make it a bit easier to understand or clearer. We don't have to fiddle about with the same object every time. The downside of this is that if you were making a game and you had 3 objects all drawing maps, if you ever wanted to change the code for map drawing, then you need to do it 3 times. So you really want to be using one object for drawing maps. But tutorial series, I'd rather make things easy to understand. Have everything kind of separate, even if it might not be the most efficient way of doing things. So that's just a brief explanation for why we're going to do it this way. Okay, so in the create event of obj test, we're going to copy some of these variables from the mission editor. You want to know the width of the ISO, height of the ISO, display all heights. We're going to be using that as well. We want mission to load. This is going to be a new variable. So for example, if you have more than one mission, you can set this to a different number and it'll load the mission. Conversation entry needs to be set to 0 every time. This is going to be the variable that tracks where we are in the conversation. So for example, for this conversation, 0 would be here, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So on this line, conversation entry would equal 5. Set up the grid. We need these variables to make use of our scripts that load the maps, because we're going to want to use them to load the maps. We need to have this DS terrain data named the same, because we've hard coded that inside one of our editor scripts. I think this one. No. To this one. Yeah. So because we have this inside the script and this, we have to call them the same in the create event here as well. So we're just creating a basic grid, width and height 1. That's fine because it's going to get resized anyway. And we need to add a list to it just to prevent errors from inside the load map script. Map index to load. So we're going to make use of the global grid that we created in obj main. It's going to tell us what map to load. And this is going to store the conversation CSV to load. CSV, sorry. Text is going to store the first entry of the conversation, as well as any subsequent ones. So at the very start, text is going to be equal to this. It's going to include everything, including the number 8. So we're going to get rid of that in a little bit. Speaker, that's going to hold the unique conversation index. So you can see it's going to first convert text into string digits, which is going to remove everything but the digits, which will equal 8. We also want to make it a number rather than a string, because string digits is still a string. even though it's number 8, it's still a string 8. So we want to convert it into a number, which is what the real function will do. So now speaker will equal number 8. Number 1, sorry. Is it 1? No, it's 8. We start with a 9, don't we? Yeah. So the very start speaker will equal number 8. Then this for loop will remove the digits from the string. So it's just going to check every character until it gets to string. Although now that I look at it, we could really just use this to get the speaker value and not worry about any digits in the text. But I'm going to leave it as is for now. Then we're going to use SCR load game data and SCR load map to load the maps or map that we want to use. So before I explain these two lines, let's just add this script first. So I'm just going to add it in here. So basically all this script does is center the map on whoever is speaking. So we're going to pass it 2 arguments. The speaker argument, which is just going to hold the number at the start of the text, and the grid, which is DS terrain data. A double for loop, and all we're trying to do is find the location of the speaker. So where in the grid do we find a unit entry that equals speaker? So conversation index equals, every cell we're going to grab the list, we're going to grab the unique conversation index for that cell. If that unique conversation index equals speaker, then we know we found the correct cell, because there's only ever going to be one cell that matches it. So we want to find the draw height of the cell. We want to know which unit it is. So what these 2 lines are for is, as you can see, we're making use of draw height here because you might have a unit that's on a really high tile, and if we just center it on the tile, it's not going to be centered on the unit. We need to know how high up the tile is that the unit's on. That's why we need to know that. And we're also going to return the unit as well. We can use that later on. You don't have to have these 2 lines. This is just for debugging purposes. And this line here just centers the camera. So that's the end of the create event for this object. Unit name. We need to know what we're going to do is we're going to display the name of the speaker above the text. So that's what we need unit for, because we're going to search our character grid that we made last episode and find the name of the unit based on that, basically. So if we go into the step event of obj test. So all this is for is to move the conversation along every time the player or we press enter. So as long as conversation entry +1 is less than the height of the conversation, so basically as long as conversation entry is here or above it, every +1 to it is going to equal here. If we +1 to it again, there's no data, so we're past the height of the grid. So that's what this check's going to do. Then increase conversation entry by 1. Grab the new text from the entry. So at the very start of the test, the conversation entry is going to be here. When we press enter for the first time, it's going to equal this line here. And then we're going to grab the speaker again, which is going to be whatever whatever numbers are inside this line, which is going to be a number 1. Then we have the for loop again, that removes digits from the string, and we grab the unit and unit name. So after you've got this, let's go into the draw event. This is probably the most painful thing to do because it's very similar to the draw event of OBJ editor, but we have removed quite a lot. So I would just recommend copying what I have here, because you might not know what to keep or what not to keep. So all we need to know for this map is we want to draw the tiles, we want to draw the decoration, we want to draw the units, and we want to show their names. So that's all the information we want to do. Anything else is unneeded. So nothing else is different, apart from we have, do we need this here? Yeah, so we've added this line, draw set font FNT editor. We're going to add the font in a minute. Let me just scroll down this slowly for you. Okay, so let's make the font. Right click, FNT editor, and let's use Arial Black. Okay, cool. So last thing to do is in the Draw GUI event, we've got one more font, FNT conversation. Let's make one more font then. This time, let's make it size 24, and let's find a decent font. This one, I think it'll do. Okay, so size 24, different font from this one. So font size is going to hold the size of this font, which is going to equal 24. We want to draw the text. I'm going to draw it kind of centered in the middle, and then from the top. And then these variables here are going to say, so what distance do we want between the lines? So I figured out the font size of this times 1.4 was about big enough distance. You can play with this however much you like, because this code that I use to display the text should work whatever you set this to. W stands for width, so how wide is the whole text box going to be? I'm not drawing a text box, but we could use these variables to make one. Text height, so how high is the text we want to display when it has to be fit in this box, this sized box. And then XX is going to be halfway across the GUI screen, and YY is going to be from the very bottom of the screen minus the height of the text. Font names. Oh yeah, my bad. So this one, conversation, let's make this Arial Black, and then let's copy it. Call it FNT names, and this one can be ink. Make it a bit more like handwriting. Yeah, that's fine. So first of all, we're going to display the name of the speaker, and we're going to display it in red, and we just want to draw it above. So we're going to have YY minus font size plus 20. So it's going to be the height of a letter plus 20 pixels above where we display the text, and unit name. So the variable we have here, we're going to use it in the draw GUI event. So if it's just a generic unit like a fighter, mage, it's going to display their name. But if it's a special character like Butts, Brian, Sarah, or Davos, it's going to display their name instead. Then we're going to display text. So make sure we have the font set to names for the name, and then change it back again for conversation. Set color to white and draw the text. And that is pretty much it. If we run the game, stop right there. This is the first word of text. Butts says, "What the smeg are you talking about, man?" Sarah says, "He's saying his was the first word, yours was the second, and mine was the third word, silly." And then Knight says, "That's right, and now that there are too many words, we fight." And Brian says, "Bring it." And that's it. So all the work we did on the editor, making the map, placing the units, rotating the units, adding the conversation file, all that kind of stuff, that's all culminated in allowing us to play a little conversation. But you'll see, we're going to, whenever we load a battle map, it's going to be the exact same process. We load the map, we load the units, we add whatever units the player has added as well, and then we just have moving around, combat spells, that kind of stuff. It's very similar, but it won't be testing, it'll be the real thing. So I'm not quite sure what the next episode is going to be about, but I will catch you then. Bye for now.